Welcome, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me okay. My name's Justin Ruby, and I'm with Centric Training. There's a lot of familiar names and companies out there that are on the list of attendees today. So, hello to those of you I've met, and hello to those that I have not met yet. Today, we're going to be doing a webinar on understanding Microsoft 365 subscriptions with our partner ZeroDay Technology. Thank you guys for putting that on for us today. I've been with Centric now for 12 years, and over the course of that time, we have lots of our customers who call in and say, "Man, you guys really need to have a class on Microsoft licensing." And it's true, and a lot of those requests say it should be 2 or 3 days long because things can get so complicated out there. So and now obviously Microsoft licensing has moved over to subscriptions, and so falling short of the 2 or 3 day training that we might be able to offer, we reached out to ZeroDay, who has partnered with us on many occasions with a lot of our customers, and asked them to do a webinar for us to help customers today understand how 365 subscriptions work. So whether you're currently on a 365 subscription and just want to understand more about it, you're in the right place. Or if you do not have a 365 subscription today and want to learn more about it, and as you get into it, then you're also in the right place. One thing is, to point out is moving to Office 365, or what Microsoft calls M365 today, can kind of be scary. What's it going to be like when our end users get a hold of this, and how are we going to get everyone trained up? How are we going to get everyone to adopt? And that's what Centric Training is here to help you do. So as you engage in a new contract on 365 subscriptions, feel free to reach out to one of your representatives at Centric Training and talk to us about our adoption framework and how we can assist you in getting all of your end users up to speed and utilizing the tools and services that come from 365. So usually we come in after a company like ZeroDay goes in and does the migrations and deployments and all that kind of stuff, but we'll help partner with you along the way. And what I'll do here is I will put my email address in the chat. So if you do not know who your contact is at Centric Training, feel free to email me. I'll get you in touch with that person, or I'll try to help answer any questions that you have. One thing to understand today, there is about a 10-second delay. So what I'm saying right now, you won't hear for another 10 seconds. So keep that in mind if you see some pause in slides and things like that as well. So without further delay, I want to introduce you to Todd Wind. He's the Microsoft sales lead for ZeroDay Technology. We've been talking with Todd Wind on really a weekly basis, it seems like, over the course of the last 5 or 6 months, and helping with a lot of the 365 migrations they're doing. So I'm happy that he's here to discuss part of the presentation with you. And then we'll turn it over to Chris Mason, who is a subscription specialist. So he'll jump into all the tools and all that kind of stuff, but they'll talk about their agenda as I turn it over to them. Guys, thank you for taking the time today. This is something that our customers have been asking for quite some time. And from what I've seen so far, it's really good material. So Todd, it's all yours.
All right, Justin, thank you so much. And let's see here, I got a queue up here. Just a little difficulty getting the camera going here. All right, my feed wasn't working, so I apologize to you for that. My name is Todd Wind, as Justin said, and appreciate the introduction, and we're very excited to be here today to talk to you about Microsoft subscription licensing. We're with ZeroDay Technology Solutions. We are an IT engineering firm, and we specialize in Microsoft technologies as well as audiovisual, which is actually kind of important in today's world because a lot of our customers are trying to figure out how to integrate their Teams rooms with Teams in their conference rooms. We also do wireless engineering as well as layer 1 cabling. Chris and I are with the Microsoft team, and we are a gold partner specializing in Microsoft cloud platform and cloud productivity. And my specific role is licensing sales. I've been doing Microsoft licensing since 2011. And ironically, that's the very first year that Office 365 came out. And it replaced the product prior to that was called BPOS. And I've been doing licensing ever since then. And, licensing on Office 365 isn't easy to figure out. When I first started, as I said, in 2011, I had to get 6 months worth of studying as well to pass the Microsoft Certified Professional in Licensing, and it's just constantly changed ever since then. So I'm assuming that's why all of you are here, is to get a basic understanding. Because the reason we're doing it is Microsoft licensing is extremely confusing. Move that slide here. There's all kinds of different products, different ways to purchase, different bundles or packages. Not to mention, Microsoft is constantly changing the product mix, what's included, what's not included. So Chris and I have been doing this a long time. We even get confused. So I imagine if we're getting confused, if you're not living in it every single day, you're probably confused too. So before we get started, though, I'd like to establish, what we are going to do today and what we're not going to do. The goal today is just to give you a basic understanding of the main platforms for licensing that Microsoft has. The goal isn't to walk out of this webinar being an expert in licensing, because that could take years, and you'll never be an expert unless you're just studying it every single day. So my goal today is really just to walk you through what we talk to our customers about, to help you understand a little better what you're dealing with Microsoft subscription licensing, so you can purchase more responsibly for your company. All right, so what we're going to do, our agenda is we're going to first discuss briefly how you can buy Microsoft 365. Then we'll cover just the basic product families that are available. And then I'll do a dive into the plan options, which will be kind of the meat of the subscription webinar. And then Chris is going to take over from there. He's our subscription specialist, so he deals with our customers after they've purchased, and on a regular basis is meeting with them and making sure, as I said earlier, they're responsibly purchasing and not oversubscribed on their licensing or paying too much. So he'll cover the top 5 licensing mistakes we see. And then Chris will also share with you some very, very powerful management tools that if you're already a Microsoft 365 customer, that you have available through your admin portal. A little housekeeping, if you guys, the live Q&A there on the side, go ahead and type your questions as you go. We'll either save them to the end, or if it's relevant to the slide we're working on, we'll try to answer it there. But as Justin said, there is a 10-second delay, so it may not be immediate for you. All right, so let's start with how to buy. There are 4 basic platforms you can buy from Microsoft 365. You can get it directly from Microsoft by going to the website, looking at the subscription options and choosing Buy Now, and Microsoft will directly bill you, and they will bill you on a regular basis, and you're dealing with Microsoft. There's not a lot of support there, questions to answer, things of that nature, but that's one option you have. A second option you have is the Cloud Solution Provider Program. That's what we are at ZeroDay, and that's what most Microsoft resellers out there are. The cloud solution providers. They resell the licensing and they bill you directly versus Microsoft billing you directly. The third option, which some of you might be on depending on the size of your organization and who your partner is volume licensing. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because Microsoft announced after 20 years they're going to discontinue that program in 2022. And then the final way to purchase 365 is through an enterprise agreement. And if you're a larger organization, over 500 users and licenses, you may well be purchasing through an enterprise agreement. That's a little more limited because Microsoft only allows, I don't remember the exact number because we do not provide EAs, but it's somewhere between 7 and 12 providers in the entire world who can actually sell enterprise agreements. So just some quick differentiators between the different plans. The contract terms. The most flexible is your Microsoft Cloud Solution Provider. Depending on who that provider is, They could let you go month to month, annually. The contract terms are very flexible. Microsoft Direct requires an annual commitment. Volume licensing is a 1 to 3 year commitment, and an enterprise agreement is 3 years. That other differentiators are the payments. Through Microsoft Direct, you can pay monthly or annually through a CSP provider. Depending on the provider, we offer monthly, quarterly, and annual payments, depending on the customer's needs and the size of their subscription. Volume licensing is paid annual, and enterprise agreements, it's a 3 year commitment, and then you pay for an entire year up front, so 3 annual payments typically. And then on enterprise agreement, you are required to purchase a minimum of 500 subscriptions. The biggest differentiator I see between direct, CSP, and enterprise agreements are the ability to reduce your licenses. In the Microsoft Direct program, if you're buying straight from them, you can reduce your licenses after the first year, meaning if you have a reduction in workforce, you can lower those subscriptions each year. With a cloud solution provider, it all depends on who you're going through. For ZeroDay, we offer our customers the ability to add and remove subscriptions as needed on a month-to-month basis. So it's very, very flexible. And then an enterprise agreement, they have recently switched that you can reduce your licenses after the first year at your true-up time, but you can never go below the 500 minimum. And that really comes into play this year with the pandemic, when people unfortunately had to either lay off people or go into furlough. Once you've bought those 500 licenses, you're committed to that for 3 years. There's nowhere to go down. As contrast to that, in the CSP program, we had customers who unfortunately had to reduce their workforce, but we were able to reduce their subscription commitment the following month, which then saved them costs. So those are just a real quick overview of how you can buy, and that's important, like I said, primarily on the flexibility of reducing and adding licenses. Next thing I'd like to talk about is the Microsoft, what they call service families. You have a corporate family, a charity, a government, and academic. Basically on corporate, every organization can buy off of the corporate program. However, charity, government, and academic, you have to qualify based on the type of business you are. And then in the government program, there are 3 different levels: GCC, GCC High, and DoD. And that's really, we're not getting into the details, but if you are a government entity on the call today, those are dependent on the level of classifications you have of the data that you keep. So those are just some options that you can purchase for them. All right, the next thing I'd like to talk about, when you think about your Microsoft 365 plans, there's really 2 basic plans. There's the business plan and the enterprise plans. The business plan is available if you're a corporate entity or a charity entity. And the big differentiator there is you can only do a maximum of 300 subscriptions. So if you need more than that, you'll have to move to the enterprise plan. The business plan has basically 4 primary options to look at. You have the 365 apps. That formerly was called Office 365 Business. This is another reason Microsoft licensing gets confusing, because they constantly are changing the names, and all the names are very, very similar to each other. But you have the apps for business, the Business Basic, Business Standard, and Business Premium. And you can see on the slide there the former names. So if you have a legacy program, you can see what your equivalent of that is now. On the enterprise side, you have the apps for enterprise. The big difference there is the ability to virtualize apps, and deployment options are a little better suited for enterprise type of organizations. Then you have Office 365, which comes in 3 versions, E1, E3, E5. And then you have a newer product called Microsoft 365. And that's really what Microsoft is marketing, trying to get everybody to go to that first. So let's dive in a little deeper. The basic business plans that are available, and again, these are for corporate and charity entities, are Microsoft 365 apps for business. And that includes your basic business productivity apps of Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Publisher, Access, and OneDrive. The other basic plan is what they call Business Basic. That's for the cloud services, not the application, but the services. The four primary services that you get with Microsoft 365 are Exchange Online, Teams Online, SharePoint Online, and OneDrive. If you're an organization that is considering this plan and you want both of those, you got to think kind of like if I were to go to McDonald's and I wanted a hamburger and a Coke, I would order the value meal because I basically get the fries for free or at least discounted. So that's what you would see called Microsoft 365 Business Standard, and that's $12.50 a month. A slight discount compared to buying both of those programs individually. Once you have 365 Business Standard, there are other add-on products for managing your mobile devices or security, and I showed you some of the common ones there. You could add that to your $12.50 a month. If you added all of them, $18.70 additional on top of the $12.50. But going back to that value meal program, you could also bundle that and get Microsoft Business Premium for $20. So if you're going to get one or two of those add-ons, you're probably better off getting the whole package because you're going to get some products for free. So Business Standard plus all of those add-ons will give you Microsoft Business Premium. Now let's talk a little bit about the enterprise plan, where a lot of organizations are probably leaning towards this, especially if you're a larger company, especially over 300. Enterprise plans are available for corporate and charity. And when you see these that's what a corporate and charity can buy. Government is G. So G1, E1, A1, they're all the exact same plan, depending on which product family you're purchasing it. The prices you see up here today that I'm going, those are representative of corporate and government pricing. As I mentioned earlier, charity and academic would get a discounted pricing from there. But it goes back to the same thing. You have Microsoft apps for enterprise or for government, and you have the basic suites of cloud services, which they call Office 365 E1. The difference between Office 365 E1 and the business plans are the amount of storage you get with your Exchange mailboxes as well as your OneDrive. So that's why it's a little bit more, because you get more storage. But we go back to the same bundling concept. If I needed both apps and the basic cloud services, I would go with Office 365 E3 or G3 if I'm a government entity at $20 a month. You also notice on this one, there's not a discount at all, but it's still a bundled package that you would get as one. Then if we were to take the E3 and wanted to add on some of these security add-ons or mobilities add-ons, and if you'll notice down at the bottom, audio conferencing and phone systems, those are super popular right now, given the pandemic and people working from home. The audio conferencing add-on allows you to do a Teams meeting and gives a dial-in number for people outside your organization in case they do not have the Teams app themselves. And then a phone system turns your Teams into a PBX, so you can actually use Microsoft Teams to replace, if you're using Ring Central or some sort of other phone system, you can actually integrate that into Microsoft Teams. So if you did any of those add-ons in the E3 package, to E3, you would probably consider Microsoft Office 365 E5, which includes everything in E3 plus all the add-ons you see there for $35 a month. So it's quite a bit of discount, as you can see, compared to just the add-ons themselves. The enterprise plans also go to another level, and you may have heard Microsoft talk about Microsoft 365. So if you have one of the business Office 365 suites in the enterprise plan, and you wanted to get enterprise mobility and security, so additional security on top of Office 365, they have these suites as well, which are EMS E3. You can also get Windows 10 Enterprise as a cloud solution rather than for your organization, which is $7 a month. So if I add all three of those packages together, the Office 365 E3, the Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite, and the Windows 10 Enterprise Suite, we come up with Microsoft 365 E3. So notice the difference of Microsoft 365 versus Office 365. Microsoft 365 is all three bundles together. It's Office 365 plus EMS plus Windows 10 Enterprise. And then we have the same thing to take it up another level. You have a E3 and an E5 across all three plans, which if you add all those together, you can get Microsoft's most comprehensive package, which is the Microsoft 365 E5 at $57 a month. So if you're talking, let's say you have a Microsoft rep that calls on you, or whoever your partner is now for licensing, they're probably pushing or talking to you a lot about the Microsoft 365 E5 plan because it's very, very powerful. And Chris will talk to you a little later about how a lot of the products in that bundle can help you save a ton of money replacing competitive products you may already have in place with your organization. All right, so that covers the basics of the plans. What I wanted to do is just summarize that for you because we went through a lot and show you what all of those plans look like together and what your basic options are probably going to be. If you're a smaller organization under 300 subscribers, you don't need the extra storage and you don't need the extra mailbox space. You're probably going to be looking at the business plans, which are 4 primary plans. You have apps for business, business standard, business basic, or business premium. And again, those are available if you're a corporate entity or a charity 501c3 type of organization. The difference between corporate and charity is your charity pricing would be heavily discounted compared to what the business corporate plans are. Most providers, cloud solution providers, well, all cloud solution providers, I should say, are able to sell the business and the charity family. So if your provider, if you're one of those and you have a provider and you're a charity on business, you might want to consider switching to the charity program for a discount. Your enterprise plans are available for all product families. So you have corporate, which is represented by E, the government with a G, academic is an A. Charity and academic are both discounted from what you see on the screen here. And it's very important to note that charity and government can only be sold by approved provider. So not every reseller is able to sell those programs. So if you're a corporate or an academic, or excuse me, a government or an academic entity, you would want to make sure you're dealing with someone who has the ability to resell those programs to you. So just wanted to share that with everybody. Hopefully this was helpful for you. What I'd like to do now is go ahead and let me get Chris Mason. Chris, if you can do me a favor and share, turn on your video and I'll get you teed up here.
All right. Give me just a second, Todd. I'm working on it here.
No problem. While we're doing that, we had a question. Do these give you a Windows 10 Enterprise license? So I saw that question come up, and yeah, it looks like Chris answered. It's available in the Enterprise suites. All right, let's get a second here to. All right, Chris, I don't have any video, but you are teed up and ready to go with your presentation.
All right, there we are. Thanks, Todd, and thanks to Centric for hosting us and for everyone who's attending. So my name is Chris Mason, and I am the Microsoft Licensing Specialist for ZeroDay Technology Solutions. Basically, my job is to work with our clients, new and existing, and review assess and optimize their Microsoft licensing purchases with a focus on the cloud solutions. So today, I want to discuss how best to manage your Microsoft Cloud licenses. And we're going to do that by looking at the 5 most common licensing mistakes that I see when I'm evaluating a new or existing client. And then I'm going to share a couple of management tools to help you understand how you use your licenses and how best to get the information that you need to plan for license deployment. So common licensing mistakes. Trust me, you are not the only one. Everyone makes at least one of these at some point during their tenure as a Microsoft licensed customer. The most common mistakes that I see when I'm reviewing customer tenants are over provisioning, duplicate licensing, subscription creep, license deactivated accounts and licensing overlaps. So what do these mean? What are they really? Well, over provisioning is really simple. It's just buying more than you need for longer than you need it. It's one of the easiest mistakes to make and easiest to correct. The information's in your billing panel. Hopefully, when you look at your billing panel, it looks like the first bit of that slide and not this one where you've got a lot of that dark blue. The dark blue indicates that you have licenses that are purchased but not assigned. So when we're looking at these billing reports, we want to see that light blue all the way across as much as possible. So why would anyone do this? Why would you ever buy more than you need? Well, that can happen in a number of ways. Sometimes it's intentional. We have customers who know that they've got a new hiring drive coming up, and they're going to hire 10 or 15 new employees, and so they pre-provision those licenses so that we don't have IT waiting on the provisioning process from their cloud solution provider or from Microsoft in order to get those folks the resources that they need. And that happens fairly frequently. It's a pretty standard practice. But sometimes it happens unintentionally, and so that's why we want to take a look at these
Hey, Chris?
reports. Yes?
Sorry to interrupt you. We just had someone request that you Zoom your presentation. It's a little difficult to read.
Oh, you know what? It is difficult to read. I apologize. Is that a little bit better? So yeah, there we go. So as you can see here, as I mentioned, we've got the bars there. You've got your available licenses and the assigned licenses, and the available licenses are licenses that have been purchased but not assigned. And so when you're looking through your reports, you want to make sure that you have as few of those available licenses as possible while meeting your business needs and your future growth. So when we look at this, the things to remember about licensing within Office 365, especially with a cloud solution provider, is that you want to provision for the organization that you are in now. You want to buy those licenses based on what your needs are currently and not what your needs may be in the future. Then plan for the change in your organization and know what your licensing and terms are. So you need to understand which licenses are assigned to which roles and how many of those you need for future initiatives, and then the terms of those licenses, whether you're paying on an annual basis or a monthly basis, and how your licensing is allowed to change based on the terms of your licensing agreement. And then manage your licenses throughout the year. So this is something that I discuss fairly frequently. We want to make sure that we are licensing, reviewing our licensing every quarter at the very least, just to make sure that you're not overpaying, you're not overbuying. It's a frequent mistake that folks will look at the licensing at budget time when they have to plan for next year's budget, or when their renewal comes up, and that's a mistake that can be costly. So one of the results of over provisioning is duplicate licensing, assigning more licensing than you need for the users that you have, and this can happen through double licensing users. We have that happen frequently. You can duplicate the features that you need with add-ons. So you've got a license that covers OneDrive, for example, and you add a OneDrive license. You don't get any benefit from that. Or licensing mailboxes that don't require a license. So again, why would you do this? Why would you pay more than you need to? It frequently happens because of a few simple errors. One of those is licensing by central business or by business unit instead of central IT. So when business units are allowed to request and provision licensing, for their users without oversight by central IT, then you can end up with duplicate licensing. You can also run into this if you've gone through an acquisition or a merger and you have licenses that were assigned by the merged companies, and then you have a new IT policy that calls for a different type of license, and as those are rolled out, the old licenses aren't removed. And then you can also do this via perpetual license purchases. So the device-based OEM volume license and EA purchases that you make that are perpetual licenses, not a subscription license. You may have purchased those before or after your Office 365 tenant was set up, and then you end up duplicating the features and the functions of those perpetual licenses with subscription licenses, which means that you've overpaid for those. Multiple license application is an error that does happen. It's fairly easy to add a license on, but sometimes not so visible or easy to detect when you've done so. And you might have two of a very similar license bundle that are applied to the same user. And then lastly, the licensed accounts that do not require a license. So this is a very, very common mistake. Licensed room and equipment accounts, as well as administrative accounts. These are not only wasting your money, but they also provide for an additional attack vector when you're considering your security, the security of your organization. In general, the rule of thumb is that we only license human beings who are logging into a service or an application. So those room, equipment, shared mailboxes, or administrative accounts that are not being logged into and used by a human being to perform the work that they're assigned don't need a license. They don't need to have a license. They do have a mailbox in the back end, especially with the room and equipment accounts. Those are your conference rooms that may have a calendar that you schedule meetings with and reply to all attendees, as well as your fax machines and your office copiers and things like that. And then the shared mailboxes, for instance, your info or your sales or what have you, where you have multiple users logging in to check that mail and respond. Those don't need a license in most cases. So subscription creep is one of the harder mistakes to identify and a frequent reason that we see customers overpaying for their cloud subscriptions. So even the best planned Office 365 deployment can suffer from this mistake. Initial deployments planned, you have buy-in from the department leads and your management team, and your licenses are purchased, they're deployed by your IT department, everyone's happy. You then come up against some common problems. Your accounting department, for instance, needs to have additional security applied to their accounts so that they can log in with two-factor authentication or send encrypted emails with personal identifiable information. Your marketing team may want audio conferencing so that they can add in non-Teams users to their webinars and things like that. And so you add those as add-ons. And after a year or 18 months, your invoices have increased, but you kind of got used to it. It's like the frog in the pot, right? He doesn't notice as the heat turns up and turns up and turns up until he's really got a problem. So this is another reason why we recommend that everyone evaluate their subscriptions on a regular basis to identify those. One of the most common solutions to subscription creep is just evaluating what features each of your roles need, why they have those features, whether or not they're using them based on your usage analytics, and then adjusting your bundle buy. So you can adjust your bundle up and get rid of a lot of those duplicated features that Todd mentioned, where you're paying $18.50 for all of the add-ons, and the difference between the plans, the bundles, is $15. Okay. So understanding which components are included in each of your subscription levels, or having someone there to guide you who understands those subscription levels and the components, because they do change, is super important. And then review regularly. Plan your future initiatives with your roles in mind, which departments are going to need which features, and license those departments independently of the overall organizational level. And then upscale your bundles when multiple products are added on. Okay. License deactivated accounts is actually one of the most common mistakes, but it's also one of the hardest to notice, to see. You can see here, if my slide is big enough, I'll zoom in there a little bit, that I've got some examples here. So we've got Ron Johnson, Rich Silver, and Robert Stone, who are all deactivated. One of them's retired, the rest of them have left the company. And they each have licenses associated with them. This is super common. So I will guess that most of your organizations have some sort of documented procedure for when an employee leaves the organization. You get the notice to HR, the equipment that they have that's company owned will be turned in, passwords are changed, accounts are deactivated, and maybe licensing is returned to the pool. Office 365 is often forgotten because it's not an obvious step in that process. And there's also a great deal of misunderstanding about what licenses are required in order to preserve the email and the files that are associated with that account. So Microsoft provides a large number of ways to preserve an account with their mailbox and the files intact, or to share that out to multiple users without actually having to maintain that license. And that's something that you need to be aware of and plan for as you're dealing with your employee turnover. And last but not least, licensing overlap. So specifically here, I'm talking about third-party products and services. Microsoft has included a ton of value in their cloud solutions, and that often goes unnoticed by end users, management, and even IT. Each of the primary bundles, both the enterprise and the business class bundles, include applications and services that a lot of folks don't know about. They are familiar with the Office applications and your mailbox and what have you, probably familiar with Teams, but may not know about things like Yammer or Planner, Booking, Sway, Stream, Forms, Lists, Analytics, and a whole lot more. All of those things are included in the bundles. And so I'm going to ask right now, could everyone click the raise hand button in the top right of your Teams window if you're on the Teams app or joined online, if your organization uses one of the following: WebEx, GoToMeeting, Zoom, or Slack? And I'll give you a second to find that button and look at it there. So Todd, can you see, has anyone raised their hand? Do we have any of those?
Chris, I'm not sure if there's a raise hand button on live, but
really?
You can throw it in the Q&A section though if you do that, and we'll publish them from there.
That'd be great.
Yes, Chris, so we're getting a lot of WebExes, some Zooms as well. So there's a variety of things.
Fantastic. So I know everyone's aware that WebEx and Zoom are competitors with Teams, but Slack is as well. And as you can see, Teams is included in most of your Office 365 bundles. All of the packages in the business level above Business Basic have it, and the Office 365 E3, E5, and Microsoft 365 E3, E5 have it included. It's just a part of the bundle. It's Microsoft's push into collaboration and voice and video communications. So we've got a lot of overlap here with WebEx, Zoom, and Slack. However, WebEx, Zoom, and Slack are going to charge you monthly or annually for each of the licenses that you assign to those services for the same functionality that you're getting in Teams. Now, there may be some business reason why your organization has chosen WebEx or Zoom or Slack over using Teams, and those are perfectly valid. You know, we have a number of customers who have some Cisco phone system backends with meeting rooms associated, and so WebEx is a great fit for them because it integrates with all of their equipment. But if not, I would encourage you to evaluate not just your Office 365 subscriptions and spend, but also the third-party applications. Look at what you're buying and what features are associated with those, and then consider which products inside your already purchased Office 365 solution are going to fit with those feature needs. And that's the end of our common mistakes. So let's move over to how to identify those common mistakes. So management tools, I'm going to go through two. It's going to be very quick. Our CEO here at ZeroDay likes to say, inspect what you expect. And that just means how are you going to know where you are or where you're going if you don't know where you are? Usage analytics is a part of every Microsoft 365 tenant administration portal. It's in the reports section. You can find it. It's got reports on the usage of each individual workload for your subscriptions, trends from the last 7, 30, 60, and 90 days, and individualized user reports based on what those users are using out of those workloads. So Teams, Yammer, SharePoint, OneDrive, Office apps, and Mailbox. I encourage you to go and look at those. That'll help you to understand how your organization is using the products and be able to plan for the future and see where you've got unused products that you can either train users to use or decrement your subscriptions on those products so that you're not paying for something you don't use. And then the Security Center. Security Center is also a part of every Microsoft 365 tenant. It is in its own separate portal, but it is accessible through the administration portal. And that gives you your secure score. Security is a super important thing in this day and age. It's never going to go away. 90% of cybercrimes originate with email, and Microsoft takes your security very seriously. So I would encourage you to go out and take a look at your secure score. Look at the items that they have in their ranked list that are the Microsoft best practices to improve your secure score, and then consult with your service provider or consultant on how to improve that secure score, because the security of your environment is going to be paramount as we move forward. So that concludes my prepared slides. So let's go ahead and go to the question and answers portion. Todd, if you want to take a look here.
Sure. All right, Chris, we do have a question. Someone asked that they are under the impression one cloud app security license will cover an entire tenant or all users. They wanted to know, should they buy licenses for each user?
So in general, the cloud app security license, a single one, it's very much like the phone system. Single license gets you access to the features. However, your reporting and your monitoring is going to be on a per user license basis. So yes, in general, you're going to need to license each user in order to benefit from all of the features of cloud app security.
Great. Chris, can you mix and match? We're talking about the business plans and enterprise plans. Are you able to mix and match between those different plans on a single tenant?
Absolutely. So when you are buying subscription services, you can mix and match. In general, again, there are always exceptions to the rule, but in general, you can mix and match any subscription with any other subscription, regardless of whether it's intended for business or for enterprise. You can only buy up to 300 of any given subscription in the business plan. So if you're planning on rolling that out to more than 300 users, you're going to have to bump up to that enterprise plan, whatever the product or feature may be. But otherwise, yes, you can mix and match those. We have customers who do it all the time, depending on what features they actually need.
All right. Let's see. So just a reminder to everybody, if you put into the Q&A section, question and answer section over there on the side, if you could put in any additional questions you may have, we'd be happy to answer those for you. All right. Let's see. Now, also, if you could share with us, if you want to put in there, is there anything that we didn't cover today that you'd like to see covered? We've got a little bit of time left on the call here, so I'll wait and see if anybody has any responses or any additional questions they'd like to ask us. All right. We'll wait a few seconds here. I know there's a delay. All right, so I'm going to publish this as from Paul. Are there restrictions on reducing online subscriptions under an EA? So Paul, I'm going to take a stab at that. As I said, we do not manage enterprise agreements. That's limited to a few providers. My understanding, and we'll, if you want to send us, I've got our contact information up there. If you want to send Chris an email, we'll get an answer for you affirmatively, but I believe you can reduce now at the end of your year. So the renewal year, it used to be that you could not reduce it, but I believe you can reduce an EA online subscription on that annual renewal, as long as you don't go below the 500. But again, we're not EA experts, so we would be more than happy to get an affirmative answer for you and get a final answer for you. So just send us an email and we'll validate that for you. All right, here's another question. Can ZeroDay help migrate to Microsoft 365, or do we just sell licenses? Well, that's a great question. We appreciate it. We're not doing a commercial for ZeroDay, but absolutely, we have an entire team of engineers that do migrations as well as Chris and I doing the licensing. So thanks for asking that. All right. Are there any other questions? Go ahead and plug them into the chat there. We've got a few minutes left. And while we're waiting, like I said, we're everything we covered today, you should be able to talk with your cloud solution provider or whoever's managing your licenses, and they can help you with those things. If you don't have anybody, of course, ZeroDay would be more than happy to work with you. So I've got our contact information on the screen. I'm not seeing any more questions come, so I'm going to go ahead and queue it up to Justin to close us out. And we appreciate everybody's time. Hopefully you get some value out of today's webinar. And Jason or Justin, thanks again for having us.
Yeah, thank you both for taking the time to do this today. And obviously, any customers of ours on this, if you have any questions about ZeroDay or about Centric's M365 training services or adoption framework, I'm happy to answer this for you. I did put my email address and phone number in the chat earlier today. So Todd, Chris, thank you again so much. It was very, very helpful. I learned a lot from this event, as I told you before, you know, and so we hope to do more of these with ZeroDay in the future.
And Justin, there's a question that just popped in asking about the recording. So I'm presuming that recording will be made available to all the attendees.
Yeah. So as soon as you guys send that over, we'll get that out to everybody. Yep.
Excellent. Yep. We'll get that published. Let's see. Any other questions rolling in? Let me check here. All right. Well, we appreciate everybody's time. Justin, again, thanks so much. And I'm not seeing any other questions. But if there are any, just let Justin know, and we'd be more than happy to help out.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, guys. Everybody have a good day.